Hi, so I'm gonna record the same session we did today at Ctrlart for basically rendering and lighting. So we're gonna start today with the dragon that you had made, and this is just the mid-poly model with UVs, no textures yet. We will do them in the next session. Let's start. I lost the video we did before. It was cropped, so I will just record this relatively quick. We'll start first by creating camera. And we're working for a still render, so I will just, before I create the camera, I'll just open the render settings and I will change the resolution. So I go here to in the common to the image size, and I will just go 1600 by 900. So it's a 2:3 ratio. Again, this jumped because I have maintained width and height ratio. I will disable it for a second and then put it back on. So I have this ratio. It is the same as HD. So this is the first setup we did for the camera, just our render resolution. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create cameras. I'm going to create a camera in AIM. For me, it's more comfortable to work with AIM. So once I get the camera, if you see here in the outliner, those that don't have it open, window outliner is here. So when I open the camera in AIM, I will just first select the camera and press W to see the locator. It's somewhere inside the dragon. For now, I will also split the screens into two. I like to work like this, that I have the two screens, one of which will be the camera. So perspective, camera 1, and then I can pull it out back. Now the camera in perspective, so I have one window with perspective view, one window with the camera render. Now I don't really see yet the camera render. I would need to add click on this button here, which will show me the resolution, the frame, the resolution gate. Okay, so I'll put it like this. Now if your screen is too small, you see as I put it, this is the right ratio. If your screen is too small as mine, what I'm going to do now is, while I have the camera selected, I'm going to open the attributes, Control A, and in the camera shape tab, I will look at where is the overscan. Before that, I would also change the film back. So I want to work in 35 millimeter full aperture. So it's kind of like a full aperture DSLR camera. If I go, I'll just have to find out the overscan, display options, and here you have the overscan. So the overscan will just let me see the full frame. If I have a smaller window, I'll make it to 1.8. Still not enough. 2. Yeah, in 2 I can see the full frame. This is what's going to be rendered. This is the exact frame. Okay. So now that I have it, I will also scale the camera. Pressing F will zoom me to the object. I will scale the camera. Just this doesn't change anything in the view. It's just for comfortable to see it in the scene. So once I have the camera here, now if I want to work and move the whole camera with the aim, if you notice the aim is still inside the dragon. This is the point where the camera looks at. I have the camera here. I have the group in the outliner I pick, and I'm going to just move the whole group up. So both the aim and the camera somewhere around there. And then I can pick the camera, push it back. So for now we just need to find an interesting angle that we'd like to render it. Now it depends, because we are rendering for a still, so each one pick their own angle. I will just do this relatively quick. Maybe a bit from a top view, and if I will change the aim now. Now if you want to move the camera along, you can also move it here. Just adjust it here and get your frame right. It depends. Okay, so I'm, let's say, relatively happy with this. Now I can lock the camera. I can lock the camera here, and then basically I cannot move the camera anymore. As you see, the nodes are locked. I still like to keyframe everything, so I can bounce back, but there's also another way. I can go here to the view in the camera panel, view bookmarks, edit bookmarks, and I will call this ran01. and when I press enter or close, it's in. And now what this does is if I now, let's say by mistake moved my camera, I can always go back, view, bookmarks, render one, and it's back to here. I would have, especially if you have a few angles that you want to render, then you bookmark a few of them. Also for safety, because I know that it moves, I will just take the camera one on frame one, press S, I'll keyframe everything, the aim, the camera, and the group. So all three, I pressed S. Great, so now that we have the camera, I'm just going to go now to perspective. We're going to start with a very basic 3-point lighting. So I'm going to create, I will change my modeling into rendering, first of all. That would be kind of useful. Before I showed you to create the Arnold lights, yeah, now it should be pretty much the same if we create it here, and here we will have this point at, so I will try to do it this way now. So I would try to go with create, lights, and we're going to work with area light. So I created the area light. It's now again inside the dragon. If I will go now, the area light, the scale of it matters. So it's the same as a kind of studio diffuse light. So I created one area light. I actually also, if you look here, I have to look at the line where it points at, then I know where it's pointing. What I will try to do is a kind of two front lights, 45-degree angle or approx, so are filling in. I'm just trying with a general lighting for the object. This could be another object, of course, and then I will start building more specific lighting. So if I press T, I get also the point at where it's looking at. So if I have two controllers now. I can take the first one where I want it to point at, and for now I will kind of put the focus on the face, somewhere around there, and I will take this light up and to the side a bit. Maybe I will also scale it a bit up. So I got my first light. I'm doing this, of course, pay more attention when you're doing it, but we'll have to first see the results. Again, I have to press T to see the special tool. If I don't do it, it moves around by itself. Okay. Once I have this light, I will also press Ctrl A for the attributes of the light. And here I have the intensity. But since we're working through Arnold, I will just go to the Arnold node here and work around these settings. So if I will go now, the exposure is 0. I will increase it. I'll put it now even, I don't know, just 1. Or let's start with 0 on the default and see what happens. So the first thing, now also remember we have a default Lambert material, so it's not an Arnold material yet. We will start working with that for a base of the lighting. Okay, so I'm going to go now to Arnold, open Arnold render view, and I will start rendering. Now I get nothing, of course. Now when I have the render view, I have here the stop and play. This is how it starts playing. You have to make sure you're selected on the right camera. So in this case, I'm definitely not. I should move it to this main camera. I can also change this here in the camera shape. Now for now I get nothing because I don't have any light. It's very bleak. I will put the exposure, and I'm starting with 5 even. I'm just jumping around, and let's go try another test render. And I think still nothing. I will just scale this down. Okay, I'll take this down to 10. And I start seeing something. I am on the camera shape 1. I should be camera shape 1. I'll press stop. Now another thing I can, because my render is too big, I can just go here and view test resolution 50%. I'll click here for 1:1, and I'll do another render. Okay, now I think it still renders the perspective. Here I have the percentage. They're out of the screen. I will just have to. Okay, so I will close it for now and click again on the screen, and Arnold open render view. Okay, great. So we have the first light from the side. It is a bit too weak. I will also click on it now and increase. So I increase the exposure. I will also increase the intensity. Okay, so basically the main difference, one has more increments than the two. Let's say a simple way to show it between them, but both of them control the intensity of the light that you would like to put. Now I think my render settings are still a bit high because I get it relatively smooth. I will go over that in just a bit. Okay, so we have our first light. I might adjust it a little bit more from the side. Right here, and you see I can see a live rendering it. Okay, cool. Now when I have this and I'm not finishing the render, I'm going to go back to my perspective and I'm going to take the same light. I'm going to just Control D to duplicate it, and then I will press T for the special tool and I will move this side around. Now for starters, I'm trying not to be so even as move it a bit too far, and I'm going to even scale it a little bit down. I'm just trying to create some differences. We have no HDR here or no background, so we're going to try to create a bit of differences in the lighting. So I have the two main lights, and let's look at the render. Okay, so we're just kind of evenly flat lighting everything up to get a base start. With the material, we should move it to an Arnold material, and we'll do this right now. So I'm going to open my Hypershade, the circle here, or Windows Rendering Editor's Hypershade. Okay, so the Hypershade is where I have all my materials organized. I have here, this is the materials I have. Here I can see textures or cameras. This is stuff that's in my scene. Here is my Create node, and here's my workspace. This is basically the same as the Attribute Editor, a bit less functional. So, and here you will see a preview. I'm going to go first create just a basic, and we won't deal with materials today. I'm just going to go to Arnold Shader and create an AI standard surface. I will assign it to the dragon, to my object. So I'm going to select it from the outliner because it's made from a lot of pieces. Otherwise I will just select, I just want to pick everything, AI standard surface, right click in the workspace, assign material to selection. You can also right click here, and you won't see it because it's out of the screen. Right click here and you say assign existing material. Same thing. Okay, so if we look at the screen for the Hypershade, we have here our material. Now later on, this is of course used to do connections, but we're just going to play around with the attributes. So I selected the material here. I can close the Hypershade for now, and I have the same attributes here. The color is white. I am going to kill all specular for now, and we shouldn't forget to put this back in. This is just for me to start getting the lighting without specularity, just to have a complete diffuse material or a prox, and then see. So I'm also the base color, the main color. I'm going to change the weight to 1. So that means that this is mainly the main color should be white and without any specular. Of course, we still have others, but just as a starting point. And let's see where we get to now. Okay, so this way I can see when I'm burning the object a bit more. It's diffused, there shouldn't be, and there's no specular now. I can see where I kind of overdid it with the lights. Okay, now we're going to put another light in, so we're still in the first 3 lights. I'm going to take, again, this light, I will do Control D. And I still didn't play so much yet with the setting, with the amounts. Intensity in this, I will do it in a bit. Now this light is a bit turned around. I will just go to the channel editor and 0 its rotations. It will be easier to work. I need to flip it so it points to the right, and this is going to act as our backlight. Scale it up a bit, and maybe a bit too much, and I will also kind of tilt it up. I want the light to come from an angle a bit, from behind and a bit below. So the reason for this, I might even push it a bit down. I will give a bit of a underlighting to the dragon from the angle that we see here. I might even push it. Now I don't know even the intensity yet. We will try this in a bit. So of course these are things to adjust. Now another thing I will do with this light, I will open the attributes, and this is area light shape 3. I'm leaving the same intensity. I'm adding a color temperature, so this light will have, it's kind of like a realistic daylight or whatever. It will get a bit, and I will use a warmer tone, so we have a bit of warmer color. So I'm putting 5000. Okay. And I will try to render it. we'll see. We should see a bit of the color lighting up here in below. Because this render is still taking some time to clear out and we're at 50%, what I will do now is I will show a bit about the render settings and how I like to start with them. If I open the render settings, we worked on the common on the pixels. Now I will go to Arnold renderer and I will change this settings here. Now for starters, when you're starting, I would have here 3. Diffuse can be 2. We can even go lower, yeah. Just to try transmission, we have nothing now. Subsurface scattering for now 0. We will use it when we'll put materials. So this is just a bit to speed up the renders while testing. Another thing I can do to speed up is I can use here the crop tool. So we'll select this crop tool, and I will just this way I can also minimize. I can just render apart now. So I reduce the time. Now I will look. I will now change this. So now I'm just rendering a region, and I will just on the backlight I will increase the intensity to 12. And you are seeing a bit here. I know how it is. It's getting this warmer tone here from below. This is for now okay for the start. Another thing just to show here about the samples. In all the lights later we should increase those samples to 2. It'll take a bit longer, but the quality of the light will be better. For now I don't mind that it's all grainy, because I'm just starting to balance lights. Okay, so I'll stop this. We have basically, I will just now go show the perspective window again. So we have our 3 light setup. So 2 from the front, kind of 1 from the backlight, and now I will start creating more lights that are to put attention to certain areas. It's just a way to build the lighting. Arnold lights, area light. I'll scale it up so it's the same area light. We see where it's pointing at. It's just that here I have different control, and I will change here in the attributes for the area light from the light shape from quad to disc. So we have this type of light, and I will do here, we have the intensity and exposure. I would also put this on 5, and let's say intensity on 8 for starters. Always use the look through the light, maybe, panels, look through selected. And now basically I'm looking at things through the light. I will move it a bit like this. It might be easier to... Okay. Now I will go back to my perspective. So I don't know how much that did, but maybe I will just go back to working it like this. So this light is still coming from the top, and maybe the angle is a bit breaking with this. Now I'll go back to my main camera. I'm tilting it a bit here and moving it. Okay, and now I'll just do another render to see what we actually did. I will take out the cropping. So we're seeing now that there is a bit more light, and this way I can start giving more emphasis to certain areas. I would even crank this up more to 7. Okay, now it's more noticeable, the difference. So by this way, I first created the 3-point lights to give a general lighting, and now I can start lighting the object of the dragon and give a bit more interesting points of where I want to put the highlights. So I'll stop this, and the way I do that is just very simple. I will just go back to my perspective view. I will select this light, Control D, and I'll move it to point there. I will also scale it a bit down. And maybe I'll rotate it. I want it to come a bit more from the top. Now I'm on world mode settings, so maybe I will just double click the tool here and change it to object mode, and then I can actually move it along the lines I put it. So yeah, let's see how this works. Maybe here the intensity would be too much, and we will see now with a preview render again. So again, so I'm starting to light up different areas. Of course, this needs to be taken more attention to. Now I'm burning it, of course, so I will just... So I'm going to try to never get to burn. That's why I'm using also this material with complete diffuse. It will look different when we'll start setting it up, but I'm just now trying to get a first start with the lights. Once we'll put also materials, we will have to adjust all the lights again. But it'll just, my way, it's easier to work now. Also, the render times are a lot longer with textures and materials, so it's a good way to start first. And also for you to see and understand where you want to put the emphasis in the lighting or what you're trying to achieve. Now with this lighting of this dragon, I'm doing very relatively flat studio lighting of a product or an object. Of course, here you can play around with different lights, more direct, more harsh, like spotlights, or make it more dramatic. Okay. So now this is okay, maybe again overburned, but I got this a bit more emphasized here. Maybe I would play around with between them, but just to continue as we did before, I will now want to highlight a bit of the tail. So I will just go again in my perspective view. I will duplicate this. Okay, let's see what that does. Now I can just crop this region, see what change. So I don't really notice much of it. I will now increase here the exposure. Okay, so this gave it a bit too much, so you see I can start seeing the details here that are appearing. Maybe, yeah, let's see how it does for the rest of the image. Okay, I might need to more scale the light down, maybe not so far to light here. Maybe I'll do that. Now another point that I would like to light now is the back around here. I will again just duplicate the same light, and you see I'm keeping the settings pretty much similar. I will of course then afterwards have to go through everything again and adjust the lights, or when you do it with more patience. Two more large lights for the wings themselves to give them a counter, and then output. Now because we're not really having any materials yet, we're just kind of starting a rough lighting base, and then we will get it more and more exact. So now the head is lit here, the back maybe a little bit here. I will need to maybe crank this up too much. I will go back to work on perspective. This light might be too big. And also this is too big. Okay, now I will duplicate the same light, and I'm doing this very fast because we did this today when we were online together. I'm just going to create two very diffused lights to come for the wings. So let's say. Now I can use the same trick at panels, look through selected, so I see exactly where I'm coming, which angle. Okay. And I duplicated it, and I'm moving one to the tip. Now I'm doing this relatively fast, so it's very sloppy. Okay, let's see what we get with this. So again, I'm back to my camera. And for example, now I save this this image. I can save this snapshot, although it's not finished render, just to see the difference between what I did. I can go into View, Store Snapshot, and it pops out here. I have different snapshot that I saved before, and then I can use them to compare. So now I change this, that I added this other lights, and I should get now again on the back it's very burnt, so this at least I will have to fix. Let's say we are satisfied with the kind of rough balance for this, although it's a bit flat, but we can, if we paid more attention and gave a bit more details and highlights to everything. But for now, let's say we're good with it. So now the next thing I will do is I'm going to go to the material. So I just select one of the objects in the group and I can go here to the material and I'm going to revert this back to 0.8. Color is white and the specular I'm going to put to 1. Later on we'll connect maps. So now we are on the default kind of more material and let's see the difference. Now I have the snapshot. I will save the snapshot as well. So view, store snapshot, and now I will do the idea with the snapshot is I can click here and I can see exact differences and compare another render with a material change. So now we've added back some specular, this. Now of course it looks like he's wrapped with a, but just for the start of it. Okay, cool. So this is the base setup for lighting, and then a few more things that we'll go and just do about the rendering. So now I'm still on lower render settings, but I will just show a few more things, and then we will do next time in the next session. We will work, like I said, about the AUVs, the render layers, and of course materials we'll put in with all the textures. So for now I'm going to stop this render. I will just show this last part that we did today. I will go back to my render settings, so I'm clicking here. We are now going to crank up the quality for a higher level. So usually a good point for kind of a decent render is 6, diffuse and specular 4, even you can go 3. Depending on the computers that you got. Now we will use the subsurface scattering. We don't have it now. Transmission and volume indirect, we're not using at the moment. So this is it for this settings. Now there's another tab at the end here, AUVs. Now these are basically render passes. If somebody is familiar with that, but the idea is that we can separate the specularity or different layers of the render into parts. So I will go now first with what I would do. We would in general need an AO. The specular, I would go with specular, just scrolling down the specular direct and specular indirect. So these together make the full specular. So I will just choose specular direct. I'm choosing specular indirect, moving it here. We will need to add AO, and I think we have the diffuse, which is the same as the color, the beauty pass. Later we will add more layers, but just let's start with specular direct, specular indirect, just to show what this does. I will close this window, and now I will need to, if you have your Arnold render view going, it won't show those layers until you make a new render. So I have to press a new render. And as it goes, I can already go here and I see the 2 layers that I added were added to the list. And if I look at the specular direct, I see all the specular light that is direct, yeah, very simple, and the one that is indirect that bounces back, yeah. So if I will go to the indirect, we see that the one from below where it's coming. Now I might need more light in the back as well, just to balance, but now I have a very easy way to control everything. So the layers I have, beauty is everything put together. The speculars we went through. Now of course in the next time we will start going and adding a few more layers, not many, the AO, and then we will go through how to composite them together. This will render as an EXR, so we'll have all the layers, and in programs like After Effects or Photoshop we can composite them